The Guyana Rice Development Board was established in 1995. The main objectives are to develop the rice industry and promote the expansion of export trade, conduct research in rice cultivation and extending to rice farmers throughout Guyana, and to promote and develop activities which aids in developing the rice industry. Over the past months, we have journeyed through the sciences practiced in rice cultivation through the work carried out by the Guyana Rice Development Board. This organization has been in existence for almost 2 decades, and while there are still some challenges in the rice industry, there is a recent economic boom in production. But how did rice cultivation all started in Guyana? In the early 1800s, isolated attempts were made to grow rice commercially, but failed due to the lack of knowledge and labor force at that time.
There's some recorded history of rice in various parts of the country. It's tried a lot. There were cases of Timeri, Viva La Force, and a few other places. But the failure of the industry in those days, but because of the harvesting time, used to clash with the same harvesting time for sugar. And the labor force was more demand of sugar.
There were even records of rice fields being flooded or damaged deliberately so they would have losses, and the labor force would go back to the sugar plantations.
The real development of the industry started with the arrival of the East Indian immigrants, and I think those that came from Uttar Pradesh were the first set who started planted rice here in Guyana.
The first experiment was in 1865. And 28 years later, they cultivated over 1,000 hectares of rice. The industry continued to expand in the late early 1900s with a recorded amount of 25,000 hectares of rice grown in Guyana. This led to the growth of rice as a business.
In the early turn of the 18th to the 19th century, we would have seen you got the decline in sugar and labor was less demanding. So by 1901, you would have seen a lot of rice starts to grow and much more starts to grow. The industry really started to grow around the world wars. But by 1903, Guyana was recorded of exporting the first set of rice out of the country, about 20,000 pounds. In those days, we measured in pounds.
The British colonies were the first to receive rice from Guyana. However, it was the Far East, such as Burma, who were the main suppliers of rice to the Caribbean before that. When the Second World War hit, the rice industry in Guyana increased even more.
Hardly rice could have come, but we would have seen a little development in the industry here locally in Guyana. What would have happened is that you had a lot of middlemen in the industry in these parts, and they were competing against each other, and the farmers were not getting a reasonable price. I guess that's history repeating itself all over since the history of this industry, but complaints about farmers not getting the fair price. And it's around that period, the early 46, 47, around that period, you would have seen the formation of what the British government did is formed the British Guyana Rice Marketing Board.
Government also inaugurated the Maikoni-Abari Rice Development Scheme, MARS, as a wartime production effort. Their primary responsibility was to make up for the shortfall of rice supply to the then British West Indies. MARS stirred much interest in the mechanization, and this led to rapid expansion of cultivated land. Another entity which was very active during that time was the Rice Producers Association, and they still play an important part in farmers' welfare to date.
The Rice Producers Association was formed in 1946 by legislation in those days. So they were active part in talking about the price for farmers, right? So that's basically where we came from, and then government involvement starts somewhere around that World War period. They would have used the war legislation to form the Rice Board, but as soon as the war finished in 1948, they would have passed it through the Legislative Council in those days, and you had the British Guyana Rice Marketing Board. Subsequently changed to the Guyana Rice Marketing Board, and then we had GRB and all these other entities that came along since Guyana got independence.
However, the industry started to experience a decline in production.
Government was supposed to get out of business because there was an era where the Burnham government was nationalizing everything. And by 1989, you realized that the nationalization was not working and they had to sell out everything. So then they put up the mills for sale.
The year 1992, the new elected government intervened in the rice industry, causing a major transition.
Government putting a lot more money into the industry in terms of drainage, irrigation, the basic facility. That's government role to provide the enabling mechanism for you to cultivate. And that's what they did. Research was also very little research in rice, not too much money into it. So in 1995, the Rice Board was formed, the Guyana Rice Development Board, where they would have taken the residual remnants, what was left of GRAMA, GREB, and NPRGC, and formed the Rice GRDB. And at that time, also in '85, NARI took over the Rice Research Station. And in '95, it was handed back to the industry.
Since the establishment of the Guyana Rice Development Board, areas such as research and plant breeding, quality control, and extension services were some of the main focus in restructuring the industry, especially in research carried out at the BURMA Rice Research Station in Maikoni.
Certainly, it is probably the most important component of the rice industry per se. It is the avenue by which technology has been developed, new technology, in order to, and be made available to farmers for them to become more competitive on a continuous basis. So they're able to compete both locally and internationally in the context in which they are operating, more so in the changing environment in which rice has to be grown.
There are 5 major disciplines under the BURMA Rice Research Station. These are plant breeding, agronomy, pathology, entomology, and seed production.
The nucleus of the research station is the breeding. From there on, the other disciplines complement the breeding program, because the main objective here is to develop varieties in breeding, to develop varieties with high yield potential, good milling, good cooking qualities, and that could be able to withstand good, bad condition, the harsh conditions that is in the farmer's field.
While these new varieties are developed, they also have to be tested in the other 4 disciplines to have a full understanding of their expectation, especially in agronomy.
We'll say that every variety or every new breeding line would respond differently, or may respond differently to fertilizer regime, seeding density, basic agronomic practice. So that will have to stand the whole test of different agronomic practice that can allow the variety to perform to the best of its ability. So that department concentrated effort there, and also they are working vigorously in looking at different soil problems that farmers may be having and address these one-to-one basis and work along with the farmers. So that's the work of the agronomy department.
A new variety will also be screened for possible infestation of diseases. This is the work of the pathology department.
The objective of pathology department is simply, the first one is to, if I should go back a little to the breeding program. In addition to having high-yielding varieties and varieties that can withstand lodging in the field and the harsh field condition, we have serious disease problem in Guyana over the past years, very long time back, like blast. Blast is the most dreadful disease of rice throughout the world. It could render plants very susceptible within a few seasons of plant being cultivated, and farmers could lose almost the entire crop, even at the stage of close to maturity, grain filling. That's how the disease is very dangerous. We have embarked on, we have carefully thought about it, and that has started long before now, since GRDB took over. And we are developing varieties that are resistant to blast. And how we do that, we incorporate the resistant genes for blast into our local varieties. So all the varieties that we release, it is almost mandatory that they must be blast resistant. So the pathology department is very crucial to breeding also. As much as we are incorporating these genes into the varieties, into the material, we have to identify those plants that are proving resistance in difficult situations. So the pathology department assists us in the breeding lines there. They will study the breeding lines in blast-prone areas we call hotspots, like in Von Betta, in Crawford Creek, and Blackbush area, and in Kanji. And they are able to sort out which of those entries are proving good resistance, good level of resistance for us in Guyana here. And only then we look at the other traits. Because if it's not proving resistance, we will not go ahead with that entry.
While studies are carried out in diseases affecting rice plants, a lot of work is carried out in entomology as well.
Well, the objective of entomology department is very clear, and is to manage the pest population that we have existing in Guyana to a level that it doesn't cause economic damage. That is being simply said. However, we know that we have insect like the paddy bug, which could be very challenging at times to manage. So we have worked out the management practice that could assist with that, and we are looking now into the future how to really tackle the paddy bug issue. So we are coming up with a set of new pieces of research that is still in the drafting stage of those projects. But I will say that we'll have to be more, in terms of managing bugs, not only a management strategy, we have to go more in depth in terms of looking at biocontrol agents and so on for a more long-term operation and management of the paddy bug. But the department itself basically oversees and develop strategies to manage all pests, of insect pests of rice.
Now that all tests are carried out in plant breeding, agronomy, pathology, and entomology, the last major discipline under the Burma Rice Research Station is seed production.
The objective of the seed production department is to produce a high quality of seed on a continuous basis for the farmers. Seed is ever so important for a good crop, and we will try as much as possible to produce a sufficient quantity of seed of the highest possible quality, so that farmers can have for multiplying for a couple of seasons. and that stem back from the breeding program also. The tail end of the breeding program, we developed the pre-basic and the basic seeds. And we also, what we call, as we release those varieties and we're going ahead, we have to maintain the integrity and the purity of those varieties. So we have a maintenance breeding program to cover those varieties that we have already released, so ensure that they are maintained in the purest form. So we do that, we multiply the pre-basic and the basic, and then we, in the seed production, we multiply it for at the different levels, C1 and C2 and so on, sell to farmer at a very subsidized price, I should say.
Producing high quality seeds is just one aspect of this organization. Quality control is just as crucial, especially in export markets. This is where the Quality Control Department falls in.
The Quality Control Department emerged from the National Paddy and Rice Grading Center. This department is now headed by the Quality Control Manager, myself, Ms. Alison Peters, and we have departments, 5 offices in Region 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. The Region 2 office is located at Anna Regina, Essequibo Coast. The Region 3 office at Crane, West Coast, Demerara. The Region 4 office, where I'm located also, is in Cowan Street, and this is the head office. Region 5 office is located at BURMA, Myconi, East Coast, and our Region 6 office is located in Corriverton. These regional offices are all headed by regional superintendents, and they are responsible for the day-to-day working of the office. The office all have grading officers and technical assistants which do the quality work in the various regions on a day-to-day basis.
The Quality Control Department is responsible for grading and certifying all paddy and rice produced for both local and export markets, also determining suitable types of packaging for them both.
The Quality Control Department also has as one of its main functions the production of the technical standards. This is to say all rice and paddy being certified has to be done through a technical standard which flows from internationally accepted standards. Now, the Bureau of Standards is ultimately responsible for all standard writing in the country. So we worked along with them to produce the standard that we now have, the GYS 211 standard, and the standard was updated this year, and I was part of the committee, actually the chairperson of the committee, along with other rice persons within Guyana, to establish this new standard. The standard has to be approved by the CARICOM regional standards body. So all the countries involved in CARICOM that are producing rice played a function in the establishment of this standard. So the standard is not basically something that one person took and wrote. It is a standard being approved by the Guyana Rights Development Board and the GNBS, and finally CROSSQ, and will be operated within CARICOM. The department also ensures that persons are trained within the industry to grade paddy and rice, and this is normally done through training programs held once or twice a year, and the persons are then licensed to operate. They have to take an exam. They're monitored during their performance at the rice mills to which they will be employed as a private person. If they do not operate within the rules and norms of the Guyana Rice Development Board, their licenses can be revoked. Their licenses are in place for 2 years, and after that 2 years, it's renewed. If they're still within the business, if we still find that they're competent.
The progress over the years has encouraged the department to reach for higher certification.
The department is now involved in trying to have the laboratory, the central laboratory at Region 4, located here in Cowan Street, accredited to the ISO 17025 standard. We envisage that by the end of the year or sometime in January 2015, this will be completed. We are working along with CrossQ as one of 5 CARICOM labs, being assisted with funding. 30% of our accreditation fees will be supported by them, and we are one of the pilot labs here in Guyana. Accreditation, we're hoping, will bring us a face within CARICOM, ensure that our certificates are representative of the product living here. This work is being headed by our research assistant, Ms. Marsha Unkirk, and we are in the high stages of completing this work. We also have a consultant who was sent from CrossQ, funded through CrossQ. She has been here for 3 visits and has been working closely with us. So by January 2015, we expect to be accredited, and that will be the highlight of the department's work.
Another department of the Guyana Rice Development Board is the Extension Services. This department reaches out to rice farmers from all the rice growing regions and educate them of the new and improved technologies and practices in rice cultivation. The mission of the Extension Department is to build partnerships and provide research-based information through non-formal education to farmers in order to help them improve their economic well-being and way of life. One way in which this is achieved is through the Farmers Field School.
Farmer Field School consists of 3 components. The agro-ecosystem analysis, which we commonly call AESA, that's one part. The other part is a special topic where depends on the vegetative or depends on the stage of growth of the crop. A topic is being discussed. So if the plant is in the vegetative stage or in the tillering stage, that tillering will be discussed with the farmers, like what causes tillering, how many tillers is expected from a plant, when is the best time to apply fertilizer for tilling to take place, and so. So normally this special topic is being done by a resource person other than the extension officer, and that can be done by personnel from research or any other invited guests or so. And the third component is the group dynamics, where it's basically, people sharing, the jokes, probably just want to, or add some brain teaser or whatever, but that's it all contribute to the informal setting that a field school would want to have. So field schools are generally simple, and we continue to analyze what is taking place in the field. The farmers continue to analyze what is taking place in the field. Over that period, over the period of 14 weeks, they will actually see how the crops develop, or the crop develops, and at the end of the season, then they will make a final analysis of how this crop would have performed in relation to what they set out to do in the first place. Because these demonstrations, they always have a purpose. For example, you want to look at the effect of nitrogen, applying nitrogen on dry soil, on the yield, or the effect of the 6 points practice on yield. So at the end of the season, that will be evaluated by all the farmers. And it's also served to prompt them or to motivate them to, or to push them to also implement the practice in their field, because it's a learning forum, a learning environment, but it's not just learning for learning's sake, it's learning for implementation. And hopefully the knowledge that the farmers would have gained at that field school session, they can transfer it into their own field.
Farmers Field School was established in 2003 and carried out throughout the rice-growing regions in Guyana. Each year, about 70 sessions are held. Demonstration plots are used since it's a more practical approach in educating farmers and not just a lecture session. When farmers are together, it's an opportunity for them to share their knowledge and experiences. This aids in assisting other farmers with some of their concerns. It has been deemed a success over the years and continues to grow each season. The Guyana Rice Development Board is actively involved in the rice industry in many different ways. One can conclude that with the tremendous increase in paddy and rice production, certainly reflects the good work of this organization. That brings the curtain down on this week's program of the Science of Rice. Thanks for watching, and do enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.